Hello, sisters. Welcome to the season 2 of the Rising Feminine Online Temple, which is a 7 days initiation for women to journey back to their true essence. My name is Janita D'Souza, your feminine lifestylist and the keeper of this online temple, where I have gathered leading visionaries from around the world to join forces and initiate you in your authentic feminine. And a big part of my work as a feminine lifestylist is to invite women to indulge into everyday simple rituals so that you feel nourished, nurtured, and also fulfilled in your daily busy lifestyle. So, as part of this online temple, I actually invite you to create a sacred container. Maybe light a candle or grab a journal. Give yourself this time to receive the offerings in this online temple space because each of the teachers here present have a very special message for you. And joining us today is Lucy H. Pearce, where she will guide us through a beautiful initiation with the burning women, the dark feminine, all of this juicy topic, which is also very close to my heart personally. And before we begin and welcome Lucy, I would like to read a little bit about her so that you get an idea of her medicine. Lucy H. Pearce is the author of 7 life-changing non-fiction books for women. Her most recent is Full Circle Health, Integrated Health Charting for Women. Her others include Nautilus Award winner Burning Woman, which is one of my favorites, and Amazon #1 bestsellers Moontime, which is also my favorite one, Rainbow Way. I haven't read that one. The mother of 3 children, she is also a vibrant visual artist with a passion for creating spirals in her native landscape in East Cork, Ireland. In 2014, Lucy established Womancraft Publishing, publishing life-changing, paradigm-shifting books by women for women. You can see all about it in womancraftpublishing.com. Her work has also been published in dozens of online and print media outlets. She has been contributing to a number of book anthologies, including Tiny Buddha, Blog Her, Wild Sister, Earth Pathways Diary, We Moon, and her work is also featured in If Women Rose Rooted. Her e-course includes Word plus Image, Your Authentic Voice, and Be Your Own Publisher. All of these details you can find and more on her website, lucyhpearce.com, and I will have the links for it underneath this interview too. For now, welcome, Lucy.
Thank you. I'm delighted.
Me too. I'm so excited. And as we were talking before, I just want to say how honored I am to have your presence in this online temple space because you have been a big inspiration for me beginning of this year and until now. It's impacting and it's creating more and more of who I am through the journey of my dark feminine and the burning women stories. So I am so excited to talk to you. Before we got into today's conversation, I did a quick meditation to tap into our energies and what we could bring today for the women watching, and pulled up a goddess oracle card, which I want to share with you. And goddess Sedna of infinite supply. Can you read that?
You are supplied for today. Thank you. You are supplied for today and all of your tomorrows.
Yeah, so I feel a deep resonance with this card and with this goddess Sedna, and I wanted to know with you if you feel anything in this moment as this goddess speaks to you or not.
She's a goddess of the sea, isn't she?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
And I actually live by the ocean, and
Okay.
we're about 2 minutes from the ocean, and we have been down there every single day for the last week, swimming in the sea, and really just washing away the challenges that we have had as a family for this past 9 months at home, and just really it feels like a kind of a cleansing of what has been and the hard winter that we've had, and re-energizing ourselves, a rebalancing of ourselves. So that's a lovely one for me personally.
Yeah, and I always connect to Sedna because of her connections with the sea as well. Yeah, the water is my healing source. So, so yeah, I'm so glad she's present with us as we continue this conversation of the burning woman. But before that, I'm sure many of the women watching would love to know how you got into your sacred work. How did it all begin? You writing books and all the publishing stories?
Mm. It happened to me as a way to stay here, as a way to stay alive and be here. It happened to me because I couldn't carry on the way I was living. I needed to find a way to be able to, and I I had always been creative as a child and through my teenage years, and I kind of had this big blossoming, and then anxiety really kind of blocked me up and got in my way, and I spent most of my 20s trying really hard to be a good girl and fit in and do what was expected of me, and I shut down my creativity there because I didn't want to. It kind of made people uncomfortable because, you know, I liked painting kind of, you know, naked women and weird spirals and writing kind of slightly strange things, and it, you know, it didn't make other people feel comfortable even though they responded quite strongly to it. And so it felt safer just to shut all that down and try and be who I was supposed to be to the outside world. And then I found myself mother of 3 children, home with them for a month solidly, and they were crawling all over me with chicken pox, absolutely miserable. And I had given up all of my work with them, and I suddenly couldn't cope. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I could continue with that. And so I just started writing. I started writing as a lifeline. It wasn't just like, you know, going to a nice creative writing class and doing it for a hobby. It was, I have to write. I have to express what is going on inside me right now in order to get through it. And that has turned into my books and my living, because that communicated deeply with other women who were living through struggles that they couldn't articulate, living through things that weren't acceptable or weren't seen to be acceptable to talk about in our culture. And so women kind of tend to get silenced, either consciously by other people saying, shh, no, we don't talk about that now, or, you know, just look at the positive or whatever, or just through the kind of the subtle communications of our culture that devalues women's voices and experiences. And so I found through blogging and then through writing books that when I shared my experiences and my voice, it resonated hugely with women who were experiencing similar things and had no outlet, had no way of comparing experiences, no way of feeling seen and heard in their experience. And so their experience felt devalued, it felt scary, they felt alone, and often they felt crazy because what they were experiencing was being told to them as not being true, or it wasn't the thing to be spoken aloud. So for me, connect my own truth and speaking that aloud, writing that aloud, and then the scary thing for me of sharing that with other people has been the path not only to my career but to my personal healing, and its ripples have gone out around the world to the women who my words have touched and given them a permission to really express what it is that they are experiencing, be it to their friends, to starting a women's circle to be able to share it, to going and seeing their doctor, finding a therapist. You know, it has helped them to open up, to start businesses, start creative projects as a way of expressing the truth within them through their female voices and through their female perspectives. So that has been my path. And so for me, our world tends to break it down into, you know, you have your spiritual bit here, you have your sexual bit here, you have your creative bit here, you have your daily life here, and the daily life is supposed to be the majority, and the rest you kind of keep private and hidden and don't talk about them too much, and, you know, try to follow the rules when you are, you know, being creative or being spiritual. So for me, the task for me has been to join all of those bits together, because in the end our life force is our creativity. It's what fuels our creativity. It is what fuels our sexuality. It is what fuels our spirituality. So for
Mhm.
me, it has been pulling all of those bits together and integrating them with my challenging lived daily life.
Mm. Yeah. And so many of us can resonate with that because all of us are going through something very similar and on a personal level, individual level. So how did the publishing company came into existence?
Again, through necessity.
Mm.
So that book that I started writing with the sick children on my knee, that became my first big book, The Rainbow Way. And I self-published a couple of books beforehand whilst I was waiting for that to go around the publishers and finally find a publishing contract, which it did. And the publishing contract, which was what I'd always wanted, always hoped for, didn't turn out to be what I was expecting. I didn't get the creative control I needed. I didn't get the pricing control that I needed. And in the end, the experience of being published was not empowering. It
Mm.
wasn't empowering creatively or financially. So I realized that I could sell my own books far better. And I wanted that creative control over my own work. And I wanted to reap the financial rewards of my own work. That felt fair and right. And I'd been an editor on a natural parenting magazine for 6 years before that. And I loved mentoring new women writers because that's who we usually had writing for us, women writing their first or second pieces and helping them to shape their work. That's always been a big part of my work. And so I decided I couldn't get a pay rise from them because they were a small business, and I needed to be able to get all of my bits in one place because as a mother of three, I only have so much time and energy. So I decided, right, I'm going to take my editing skills and I'm going to take my need for a publisher, and I'm going to give other women starting out the sort of publisher that I wished I'd had. So I
Mm.
became what other women were looking for, and I became what I needed for myself. So
That's how we create the new paradigm, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. So we built it consciously on their values. We built it on what women need emotionally, creatively, in terms of a community when they're starting out
Mm.
in the publishing world. We built the sort of company that we would want to do business with, and that is what we've become.
Wow, and that's so inspiring for women who are looking forward to, publishing something or writing something and being understood with the content as well, because that's a bigger challenge with mainstream publishing houses, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it comes with its own challenges. People expect you to be able to do all that as well as, be a big fancy publishing house with a massive advertising budget and, a whole kind of marketing department. We don't have that because we're a small family run enterprise, but we work with the values that we find important, and we connect directly with the women who our books are for, and that's again why we are loved and trusted in our community, because we're part of that community and we communicate directly. We're not going through big fancy advertising campaigns and through the mainstream media. We are connecting heart to heart with the women who are looking for the sort of books that we are creating.
Yeah, and this is also, the feminine leading the businesses, the value-based business as well, which is shifting from the patriarchal ancient ways of, just the profit and that's all, but feminine is adding the value to it, the
Absolutely.
creation.
And what we love about our business is that we choose to give a certain amount of our profit to Tree Sisters, which is involved in
Ah,
reforesting the tropics. We gift via a program called World Reader. We have ebooks of all of the menstruation books are going for free to developing world countries on e-readers. So hundreds a month go out to countries around the world where reading is challenging, where having books available, libraries available is challenging, and this program is out there distributing e-readers and then the free content on them. We gift to women's circles, we gift to women's libraries. So we are doing what we can
mm,
to make a change in the world and to
mm,
spread words and
mm.
spread wisdom and hope, and the feeling that you're not alone in the middle of this, and that there are other ways forward apart from the ways that patriarchy is telling you that there are other ways. So
Exactly.
do it.
Yeah, and thank you for doing this work, because yes, there are other ways when we start looking. I remember when I wasn't aware of, something like this happens in the world where women come together or something, like, do some crazy stuff in circles. So, so I wasn't aware of this until I started to look, and then a whole new world opened where so many resources are available. So I'm really glad that people like you are leading the way and creating the way for women to explore more of what they really want, because it's available, and we are so fortunate to live in this world, in this time, especially in developed countries, and resources are available.
Absolutely, because I mean, when we started, I started a women's circle here in Ireland, and the only resources I could get were a couple of books from the US. This was in the mid 2000s, and no one around here had heard of a women's circle. It was completely new to us, and so we got those resources that we could find, and we had to translate them into our own culture here, and we built it and we made it happen. And I think that's, women often think that they just need to turn up to something, or they need to do it perfectly on Audible, but you can evolve these things from the information that you can get your hands on, and then adapt it and create it for yourself, because often the things that you're needing aren't there, so you have to make them happen in some way. And it doesn't have to be big or fancy. You don't need a budget for it. Like, I literally wrote out an invitation with a quote from this book that inspired me, and printed it off on my computer and handed it out to the women at my breastfeeding support group, who I felt sort of a connection with, to invite them to come to this circle in my sitting room. And 10 years later, we're still meeting once a month.
Wow.
So that's how simple it can be. Like, we didn't have to hire a room. We didn't have anything fancy. We didn't have a trained facilitator. We had the intention that this is what we wanted, and we figured it out. And we've just done one now for our daughters for the last year.
Wow.
Using a book that Womancraft published called The Heroines Club, which is a mother-daughter empowerment circle, and it is sharing women's history through women's circles with our daughters. And so we got to share the medicine that we have got from circling together with our daughters, aged 8 to 11. So you said you discovered this as an adult. I discovered this as an adult.
Yeah.
Our kids are learning it now. They're growing up.
What a gift. What a gift.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so if you can imagine growing up with this as part of your normality, then what would they be able to produce and create? Because they're not having to start from scratch. They're starting a couple of steps on.
Wow. Yeah, you're giving me shivers. So let's talk about Burning Woman. I know this book is absolutely amazing. I'm going to recommend it to every woman watching that, pick up the book and see what it brings for you, because it's going to take you for a ride inside of, the depths of your family. So how did this Burning Woman come into existence for you? I'm really curious. Or maybe I should change the question here. I just feel like, sorry, but I just feel like, what do you mean by the Burning Woman? Let's start.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So, Burning Woman, what I noticed was that women tend to use metaphors and analogies to do with fire and burning when they're talking about passion. So, you've got fire in your belly, or she had fire in her eyes. We tend to use phrases like that a lot. Or when we've been knocked down and we're kind of recovering from it, we say we're rising like a phoenix. Or, we often say that when somebody's being attacked, we call it a witch burning or a witch hunt. And so I noticed that time and time again, women were using these metaphors to express a uniquely female, mostly uniquely female experience of power arising from within or being enacted from the outside on them. And I noticed that for a lot of women, coming into their power, coming into their creative expression, their self-expression, they got to a point where suddenly they couldn't proceed, that there was this enormous blockage, this enormous fear, far bigger than, oh, they'll laugh at my painting, or nobody will like my writing. It was a visceral terror of being burned alive, of being attacked, of being destroyed by people around them if they dared to let out what was inside. And because a lot of my work is to do with teaching creativity, enabling creativity, I was just witnessing this again and again with women wanting to, knowing that they had something inside them that they wanted to express, and feeling so incapable of doing it because of the degree of fear. And I kind of thought, what was that fear about? Because, you know, they're not actually going to get murdered here in Ireland. They may in other cultures, but here in Ireland, they're not going to. You know, in the US, you're unlike, if you're a woman of color, you might. As a white woman, you are unlikely to get murdered. And yet there is this deep, it's that strong, that feeling of, I am in danger if I open my mouth. So I wanted to know what it is that's trying to come out. What is that fire within that we have to let out? Why is it so powerful? Why is the need to do it so big? And then what is this fear that is so big that it can keep that which is trying to arise within us, which can keep it in and down, because that must be even bigger. So it was an exploration of what those two things are, what the fire within is and what the fire outside of us is, and trying to move from this unconscious fear and this unconscious drive and urge to make it more conscious, to make it more understandable to us as to what it is we're working with, and therefore how we can allow ourselves to build this fire within and feel safe to release it. And then also to look at the dynamic which is endemic amongst women of all social classes, backgrounds, colors, cultures: burnout. Women taking on so much that they burn out. How does our culture let us burn out? And then even more interestingly, especially amongst women, this way of women burning other women to keep them in their place, to keep them down. When a woman is seen to have stepped beyond her bounds, to have been so unacceptable, the cultural thing amongst women is to burn that woman, so that you basically put out her fire and she cannot express herself anymore. So what is that about? Because again, I'd experienced that myself, I'd seen it happen again and again, and I was trying to get to the bottom of what that is. So it was this understanding of this fire, this power dynamic that goes on within ourselves, between us women and a patriarchal culture, and in between women. How does it work? What is it about? So I describe the book as a woman. It's for women who burn with passion, and who at another time or another place would be burned at the stake. Because that's another bit. It's along with this fire, there's a darkness that comes with it, which terrifies us and which terrifies our culture. And then we get into the whole history of witches and witch burning, and the silencing of women who did not follow patriarchal boundaries and laws. So, you know, it gets historical. It's also very personal, and it sucks in a lot of different other women's experiences to really examine the dynamics that are going on.
Yeah, I really like you mentioning about the dark side as well, because this book has been really, really powerful for me, initiating the dark feminine in me. You know, all the time we've been taught to run away from it. But I remember there's something in the book that you mentioned, that the darkness is like the darkness of the womb. And when I read that, I was, and the entire paragraph, I was literally in tears, because that's how it feels. Because why are we trying to, you know, take it away from us? Why are we running away from it? Why can't we instead embrace this darkness and, you know, learn to walk with it, learn to meet it at because it's never going to go. It's going to go for now. It's going to come back. And that's what was happening with me. It kept coming back. And so I was so inspired to go deep into the dark feminine. And I'm so glad that you're here and we can talk about it. And I would like you to share your insight of the feminine darkness and why women are running away from it.
Okay, well, historically and culturally, we have been taught within most patriarchal religions that we reach for the light, and God is of light, and therefore everything else of the world and of other worlds is darkness. So it is therefore not of God. It is to be moved away from. It is scary. It is dangerous. Whereas within more matriarchal traditions, the darkness is the womb. It is the place of infinite creativity, infinite possibility. Yes, it's a place of chaos, but it's creative chaos. It's a chaos that will break us down because the life cycle is life, death, rebirth. But within many patriarchal religions, the rebirthing is only possible through the Father God, the God of light. And so the mother, the female aspect, and the importance of death and rebirth and the cycle of living and death has been broken, and it has been turned into a linear thing where you start at birth and you end at death. And that is under the control of patriarchal culture. And then the death bit, well, we don't really know what happens, but that's under control of the Father God. So in this cyclical way of understanding, rebirth and death are a vital part of the creative process. They are not to be dismissed, scared of, put away. If we want to be creative, if we want to be co-creative with the universe around us, then we need to learn the process of death and rebirth as well. We can't just push it away because it is a vital part of life. It strips away the old so that the new can come through. And so we as women get to learn this in our bodies month after month through our menstrual cycles. So our culture is trying to force us to always be bright, on, full sun, fertile, which is where we are in ovulation, but it doesn't allow for the premenstrual darkness, the need to rip away and tear away that which is making us angry and frustrated, that which is old. It doesn't allow for the resting and the shedding and the reflectiveness and the silence that's required in menstruation. It just wants us fertile and producing, consuming. And so this vital part of life, and we see it not just in our bodies, we see it in the seasons. It's needed, it's necessary, it's how life works. But our culture is in total denial of that. And so the dark feminine is simply saying that if you are going to have this fire that you create with, this fire comes from the darkness within us and it goes out into the darkness beyond us and it will die down. You can't always be at this level. You know, it will die back down. And if we don't allow it to die down gently and then come up gently, it will burn us out. That's how nature works, you know. So it is this understanding that in the masculine paradigm, darkness equals death, death equals permanence. It's the worst thing that can happen. In the feminine, darkness is the other side of life. It is the side of renewal. It is the side of reflection. It is the side of the spirit, and it is vital and necessary. And so rather than trying to avoid it, it is our duty to go back into it, to gain from its wisdom, and then to grow up again in the creative side of the cycle, and then we die down again. And so it's necessary. We can't avoid it if we want to be fully creative, if we want to be fully engaged with life. We can't avoid it.
Yeah, it so resonates with you. Soon after getting inspired by the book, The Burning Woman, and my personal journey, I was realizing, and it was exactly during the time of Easter, I would say, where everybody was talking about the death and the resurrection, the death and the rebirth, the death, and I was and I was working with the energies of the Yeshua and Mary Magdalene at the time, and I could feel real intensities and anger and rage. And I realized that everybody's talking about death and resurrection, but nobody is talking about the Saturday in between, the space in between. And that's where I found myself. I felt like I am in between, and this is a place of darkness, pretty much, because something is, emerging out of here, and no one talks about it. No one wants to even mention it. You die, and there's rebirth and resurrection, and light is back. but what about the space that we women spend many times during the moon, as well as you say, during dark moon, during our moon cycles? We are held in the darkness most of the time, and no one talks about it. And I remember when I was sharing my some of my program on Facebook, I got really hateful comments that you're working against the light consciousness and because I was talking about the dark feminine. And it's really interesting how people misjudge this concept.
And like a lot of the New Age movement has basically taken on patriarchal religious values and just gone for love and light and only love and light.
Yeah.
And they want to ignore everything else. They want to bypass it spiritually. They don't want to deal with it. They just want to get above it, be done with it. But like we're here on earth. This darkness is part of what we're dealing with. It has to be dealt with. Otherwise, it kind of goes underground and it causes all sorts of much more destruction than is needed. And I've got to kind of at this point just say that there is a racial element to it, that we have the light being good, therefore we have white being good. It's a white supremacist attitude that darkness is dangerous. Darkness is not to be trusted. Darkness is not of the mind. Darkness needs
dirty.
And it's like it's really important that we are aware of that, because it is part of the dynamic that's going on that discredits and devalues the other, the darkness, other people's, other ways of seeing, other ways of being. It's just like, no, you can only have these white values. You can only be in the productive, the consuming, the white values of white supremacist culture. Like, it's vital that is, we understand that it's going through on all of these levels. It's woven through.
Yeah, that's so true. Wow. So I know that you have a beautiful initiation for us women watching. So would you like to guide us through?
I would, and it is leading exactly on from our discussion that we've just had. So if I'll just give you a little introduction as to kind of why I've chosen this. So Sue Monk Kidd, who is one of my favorite authors, said, "A woman's initiation includes many moments of crossing a threshold. This threshold is the bridge to our feminine soul, and crossing over is the beginning of becoming." So in many traditions, a key part of a woman's initiation is to be left alone in nature, and often immersed in total darkness, whether sleeping out by herself under the stars or in the wilderness, finding her way through a wood or descending into the depths of a cave. And this gives her a lived experience of confronting her learned and instinctive fears of the dark, teaching her how to dig into her own resources and discover her own inner resources for coping, her own vulnerability and her own deep strength. So we can wait for a retreat, or we can wait for the darkness to fall each night. We can pull the curtains close now and close our eyes and access the darkness right now. So I invite you to do so, to close your eyes and step further into the darkness, into your own darkness. Follow the sound of my voice and the flow of your own breath. You have no need for your outer eyes or ears here. Here you are, alone, but not alone. I am here for you, holding space, waiting with you in the darkness. Welcome. I see you there, standing on the threshold of the portal of feminine power. Dare you cross over? This is the space between dreaming and becoming, the liminal space. For perhaps the first time in your life, you are standing in a space which is not defined in any way by the masculine. This is no man's land, the threshold where time and space coalesce in a different way, and we re-emerge to a new identity. Can you try to picture a softer dark than the masculine darkness you have been brought up with? Feel into a darkness which is benevolent and mysterious. Feel yourself cradled in it, fully held. Can you imagine that rather than a void of nothingness, darkness holds complete intelligence and possibility, waiting to take form, soft and warm. A mother's nest, feathered with the softest down, a dark cocoon in the palm of the goddess. You are held so gently. Your skin is night, and the stars your necklace. You are safe. You are home. You are loved. You can rest. I invite you to step further into that darkness with me and adjust your inner gaze, heightening your vision, learning to see through sound, hear through feeling. In the dark, you need all of your senses. As you wait here in the dark, your inner eyes and inner ears are heightened and aware. Your instincts are strong. You are fully alive, fully alert. In the darkness, you are here. This is not the darkness of fear, but of love. Deep, complete, unconditional acceptance. The loving darkness of our mother's womb. Soft and dark and round and safe. The darkness that held us as we grew. For the first part of our life, we were at home within her. We belonged intimately within the feminine. And part of us longs to return to that safety, ease, and feeling of deep belonging. We come here to reclaim our words and our images, our spirits and our souls. Here is where we meet the roots of our feminine power. Allow yourself to be held within this matrix, within the womb space of the divine. Allow yourself to rest here. Allow the shadow space to embrace you in your wholeness. Lie down in the womb of infinite possibilities. Let go of your projections, your personas, your stories, your effort. Lay them down and allow yourself to rest fully. Know yourself without limits. This is the birthplace of creativity, the passing place of life and death, where existence splits in and out between pure consciousness and the material realm. Settle in. Make yourself at home. Time does not apply here, only truth. You cannot hurry this place. It is the resting space of eternity. This is the space you must inhabit to hear the call, the whisper of your soul, the shouts of she. This is the space which always holds the sacred invitation to healing. This is where your invitation to dance in the flames can always be found. This is the place you will return to time and again. The feminine darkness is an invitation to intimacy with that which we have never seen or heard, but which we know as truth. An invitation beyond doors of perception to the deepest layers of our soul. Unsullied by the dust of the world, she is waiting for you. Always, always, always. Breathe in her wisdom and gently open your eyes, bringing that knowing out into the world with you.
The darkness feels so juicy.
Ooh.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing this medicine with us, Lucy.
Thank you for sharing a platform to be able to.
For those women watching, I would highly recommend Lucy's book. I have it with me here, Burning Women, it is called. It's beautiful, and it's going to take you into a beautiful journey of your own feminine fire and all of your burning stories and the darkness. And you can also, I think you can get this excerpt from the book as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I've collated it from various bits and pieces, but yes, the majority of the material is there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that we can become friends with this darkness and create our fullest potential. Thank you so much, Lucy. I know that you have a beautiful free gift as well for us women. Would you like to share about that?
Yes, I'm just for you making available the first couple of chapters of Burning Women so people can start reading it and see if it's for them. So if you follow the link, you will get that email directly to you.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, your presence, and sharing your medicine in this online temple space, Lucy.
Thank you.
And I have one last question that I'm asking all the teachers in this online temple, which is, what does rising feminine mean to you in this moment?
It is something very personal for each of us. It's happening personally within each of us. But what is really exciting is that it is happening around the world right now, that it is not just an individual experience. The rising feminine is coming up through the earth. It's coming up through us. Women are joining together, and the power of the feminine is breaking out into the world for the time in thousands of years. And to be alive now is terrifying. To be alive now is so exciting. We chose to be here now. So take that opportunity in both hands.
Yes. Very well said, and I totally agree with you. Thank you so much, Lucy, once again. Thank you for your time, your presence, and your gift.
Thank you.